Saving America one entrepreneur at a time. It's the Biz Wrap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs. It's Biz Wrap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Wrap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, if you haven't been listening to Biz Wrap Radio before, we are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. Yes, we are here supporting the lifeblood of the American economy. Hey, is that news to you? Ed, you haven't been taken in by those folks in Washington and Wall Street who tell you that this world revolves around big business, big corporations, government agencies, and the fat cats on Wall Street. Well, it's not true. This country, the economy is driven by small businesses. Most new jobs are created by small business. Most people in America work for a small business. We have literally thousands and thousands of new entrants every single week into the arena of small business. It's very common today for people who actually have a full-time job working for a big corporation or the government to have a small business on the side. They're selling things on eBay. They're doing web development. They're doing graphic designs. It is really what separates America from a lot of places in the world. But hey, don't get carried away, because we have a big problem here in the U.S. There is a war on. No, it's not the war against ISIS. It's not the war against women. It's not the war against poverty. It is the war against small business people and entrepreneurs. Yes, they're out to get you. Our government wants you out of business. Our big businesses want you out of business, and Wall Street wants you out of business. Hey, when was the last time you ever heard of a bank actually giving a business, a new entrepreneur a loan? No, what they do now is they want you to take out one of their credit cards, and then they give you a big fat limit. You use that to finance your business, and the minute you miss one payment, like a fellow I was talking to had a $25,000, $30,000 credit card with American Express, missed one payment, jacked the interest rates up to almost 30%. Now, how can you survive as a small business person when you're paying 30% to American Express? Talk about business regulations. The regulations are crushing small business. It's taking months, if not years, to open up a small business. You have to comply with literally dozens and dozens of different agencies at the federal government, the state government, at the at the local level. And what about taxes? I keep hearing from these pundits in Washington, they'll point out, well, the income tax rate is lower than it was in 1947. Yeah, you want to look at your phone bill? I just pulled out my phone bill the other day. There is 13 separate taxes on my phone bill. $82 worth of taxes on a $500, well, it was more than that. It was about an $800 phone bill. $82 worth of taxes, 13 different taxes. So, and look, when the economy gets tough, is the government helping you entrepreneurs? Is it out there bailing out the dry cleaners, the lawnmower shops, the roofing contractors? No, it's bailing out the fat cats on Wall Street and those guys running big corporations like General Motors, who are running those big corporations very, very poorly and who should be going out of business. So anyway, I'm just about finished with that. It is Mike Manahan, your host, Biz Wrap Radio. We're here fighting for you, the small business people of America now. And that's the type of guest we have on the show today. We're so lucky to have on the show with us Natalie Forrest. She is the CEO, international executive consultant, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and mentor. She's the founder of Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential, a series of educational trainings for individuals and corporations around the globe. Natalie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, and wow, everything you mentioned at the beginning. We're on a roll here. Let's get started and see how we can revolutionize everybody's business.
Well, that's what I'd like to do. I really I really have a lot of empathy, and my heart goes out to the entrepreneurs of America. A lot of the media highlights the one guy who gets lucky, the Bill Gates or the guy who started Google or Facebook, and but that's not the average entrepreneur. The average entrepreneur works far more than the regular wage earner. He's working 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day. Many of them work for many, many years at below par wages. They mortgage their homes, they put everything at risk, and finally, after many, many, many years of struggling, they make a little bit of extra money, and now they're targets of the IRS and the federal government who want to take a lot of that money away from them. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, it's interesting because I think what you discover is and what you talk about is so important. We have this system in place where we say that entrepreneurs are the backbone of the United States, of the world. But the United States, of course, is very unique in many ways. And historically speaking, that's why people came over and still come over to the United States, because you can just put up your own business. However, as you also very much point out, really, the only time that you get those tax breaks that are consistently mentioned are when you're not just one of those businesses that you mentioned, the from home, the on the side, but only when you become an S-corp or something of that sort. And then you have all these other expenses where you actually have to have an accountant, where you have to have somebody for your payroll. So very clearly, there is a disconnect here between saying we want to encourage entrepreneurs and we want to encourage small business, while on the other hand, we're not getting any breaks.
Yeah, it's crazy. But so what advice do you have for someone that perhaps is considering to become an entrepreneur?
Well, the first and most easy thing to say is, are you sure you want to do this? But I think entrepreneurs, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to know that one of the most important skills that you need to possess, well, there are two: time management and confidence. And they are rolled into, your understanding of your purpose. If you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to make money, and that is your sole purpose, I would probably say don't do it, because you have to jump through so many hoops, as you very well know, and it takes at least 3 to 5 years, according to our latest statistics, for any small business to really take off. So unless you have that commitment and you really have it in your heart and soul and understand why you want to do this, and you're willing to invest in it, don't become an entrepreneur. And I'm saying that, with all the experience and all the love that I have, because being an entrepreneur can be very challenging, especially in the first few years. You mentioned earlier, we hear about that one person, but there really is no overnight success. You have to work on it. You have to make connections. You have to network. And I keep saying the same thing. You have to invest in yourself. And I think that is really one of the things that I've seen that is very difficult for a lot of people. And then not to mention the time management. I mean, as a small business owner, initially, you do everything yourself because you likely don't have a whole lot of money coming in. So you can't just hire somebody. You got to do it all. And so you have to understand what that means. On the bright side of this, of course, those of us who know that this is what we're supposed to do, those of us who understand our purpose, this is nothing. We have our little moments of doubt, but this is what we're meant to do. This is what we're here to do. And so I think those are just some of the things that I think are really crucial to consider. Be sure you're doing this for the right reasons.
Okay, so look, we got about 1 minute left before we have to go to commercial break. So is entrepreneurship for everyone?
No.
Well, that's a simple answer to that question, isn't it?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. You have to be committed to what you're doing.
Okay, so we've talked about time management. You talked about I think you said investing in yourself, and I want to come back to that after we come back from commercial break, because I'm a big believer in that. I've heard people say, well, some of these successful guys like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, these guys dropped out of university. They didn't have to get an education. Well, that's not true. They did get educations. They just didn't get their education at some formalized institute of training. But believe me, they were extremely learned individuals. And what I find about entrepreneurs, they're constantly learning and improving their skills, their knowledge, and their understanding of the world around us. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. It is Mike Manahan. This is Biz Rap Radio. We are on with Natalie Forrest. She is the founder of Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential. And we're going to find out when we come back how you can revolutionize yourself. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thanks again for joining me today. And if you just joined the show, we are talking to Dr. Natalie Forrest, the founder of Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential. We talked in the last segment about how, as entrepreneurs, you need to work on time management, you need to work on investing in yourself, and that entrepreneurship, it's not for everyone, so you need to give it some thought. It doesn't happen overnight. Natalie, thanks so much for sticking with us.
Oh, thank you. This is very exciting to me because I love the way that you're sharing information, not really holding anything back. That's really important nowadays.
Now, look at somebody who's listening may be thinking, "Gosh, I'd like to learn more about Natalie and what she has to offer." Where can somebody get a hold of you? Where can they find out what how your services and products might help their business?
Well, thank you so much for asking. The easiest for everybody is I'm all over social media, and I use my real name, so it's Natalie Forrest. So Facebook, Twitter, all of that. But, of course, I also have a website, and that is also very simple, natalieforrest.com. And one of the things that I always encourage people, on shows like yours who are either on the verge or have been in a little bit of a rut, maybe trying to figure out whether this is for them, I do offer a 20-minute free session where we really, get into the detail of what you might need to work on to really start your business, to accelerate your business, to really start flying and to get back that confidence. So that is also very something. It is on my website. It's also a very simple link for everybody under bit.ly, and then it's just bit.ly/NFI for Natalie Forrest International _BUS for business. And that would be a free 20-minute business session with anybody who just has some questions or might feel a little stuck and not sure what to do next. I love to offer that to people.
Well, that's great. And it's one of the things I like about the people we have on the show. So many of them do offer free services before somebody actually has to spend some money and engage them. They have white papers, they have free chapters from their books, they have free ebooks, they have systems and things you can use on their website, and some of them will even extend as you have, a free consultation of some sort. Take advantage of these. Okay, and I know you think, it's just a sales tool. Somebody's all they're going to try and do is sell me on their services. Well, here's what I find is, even if you don't end up using somebody's services, they can give you so many good ideas in a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation if you just shut up and listen to them and take notes and get your pen and paper out. I do a lot of helping companies raise money, and one of the interesting things that happens when companies are trying to raise money, they get in front of the money guys, and the money guy, they give their presentation, and then the money guys will start to ask some questions. and they'll spend all of their time defending their decisions, their strategy, how they're going to distribute their products, how they design their product, rather than turning the tables and asking questions of the money guys. Well, do you think I'm doing this properly? How would you have done it? What do you think can help me be successful? They're so wrapped up in themselves, they forget that a lot of people have great ideas, and you can tap into those ideas just by asking. So check it out. Contact Natalie. Take advantage of her free offer. It's natalieforrest.com. And, of course, she's all over social media, as she says, using her real name, Natalie Forrest. Now, I don't know what happens if you get divorced and marry somebody else and your last name changes, but
well, I'm not planning on doing that, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
Okay, so now you talk about this revolutionizing, revolutionize your potential success revolutions. What do you mean by that? That's something that's a term that to me I can't necessarily readily define. So help us out with that, if you would.
Well, it's very simple. We're socially conditioned. I mean, all of us are, right? We grow up in a certain society. We grow up with certain beliefs and values. Plus, there's a lot of social conditioning that also happens subconsciously. A lot of the things that we pursue, a lot of the dreams that we pursue may not actually be our own. And so that's why I talk about revolutionizing. And that's what I mentioned, in the first segment, of course, when we're talking about, your business. Is this really what you want to do, or are you just, wanting to be an entrepreneur because somebody says you should? So revolutionizing means that you stop doing what everybody else is doing just because it seems to work for them, or even just because your textbook or your instruction book or your business handbook tells you to. What happens is that, as you very well know, Mike, it doesn't work for everybody. We're all individuals. We all have our own success idea. We all have our own dreams. We need to implement that in ways that work for us. Now, there are certain things we have to do in business, and one of those is networking, and a lot of people don't like it, including me at times. But it's something that you need to do. So there you need to revolutionize your own perception of what you're doing. And you also just revolutionize something indirectly or maybe even consciously by inviting everybody to make use of those consultations, but be open-minded. A lot of people hesitate to take that first step because social conditioning tells them, if I go to this consultation, if I go to this free workshop, they are going to try and sell me. I will not be able to leave without signing a contract. Well, why? It might not work for you. The person that you're having a consultation with may not work for you. You may not resonate with them. And that is perfectly fine. So success revolutions really means, number one, identify what success means to you. Number two, identify your true purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? A lot of coaches will call it the big why. And then number three, find your way of doing it. Now, when we're talking about find your way of doing it, the system that I use, I like to, grandly have, of course, a term for it, and I call it the hidden power of patterns. In, the last 30, 40 years of my life, I've been doing a lot of research, and the social conditioning has led us to patterns. Very often we're on autopilot. We don't even know why we're doing what we're doing. So we need to identify those and get out of those. And that's what I work on in a nutshell.
This pattern thing really intrigues me, and I'm so glad you brought that up because, I just turned 60. Okay, so I'm
congratulations, happy birthday.
Well, I don't know. It's this getting old is a challenge, but nevertheless, you got to make the best of it. You can't turn back the clock. But I've started to, as somebody who's just turned 60, to look back at my, life, and I recognize that my life has been a series of patterns that I've repeated. And, of course, the good ones the good patterns that I have led me to, a reasonable amount of success. I'm not the inventor of Facebook or Google, but I've done okay, and I've raised two wonderful daughters, and they're both happy and healthy, and I've got lots of great friends, and I spend a lot of time working. But I look at the patterns that I engage in, and boy, they are so similar over and over again. But I continue to repeat, fortunately, the positive patterns that have brought me successful things, but there's a lot of negative patterns, and I just can't seem to break them. I do the same things over and over again. And as an example, one of the things that I struggle with is I always seem to put too many things on my plate. And I was
really.
I was having lunch with an old friend and his wife on a recent vacation over the July 4th weekend there, and we're having we're having lunch, and she says, "Well, Mike, what are you doing right now?" I said, "Well, I'm doing the radio show, and of course I teach university, and I got a couple of consulting contracts on the go, and then of course I've got my real estate that I manage, and oh, by the way, I'm thinking of getting involved with some guy in a restaurant." And she says, "Don't you think you're doing too much?"
And you're like, "No, why?" And that goes to time management as well. But I'm so glad that you're bringing that up, because let me put it this way. I work with a lot of people, and I myself been that way too. Like, a few years ago when I started being an entrepreneur, I followed one path, and then I was like, well, but I have this much breadth. I can help people with this as well, and I can work with them on this, and I can work with them on this. And nobody knew what I was doing anymore, so they were all confused. They were like, well, I like you, but what exactly are you doing? How can you help me? Because you're like doing 20 different things.
Natalie, can we just hold that thought right there? Because we got to go to commercial break. It's Mike Manahan, your host, Biz Rap Radio, on with Natalie Forrest, founder of Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Rap Radio, your host, Michael Manahan, and we are on the air today with Dr. Natalie Forrest, CEO, founder of Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential. And we have been talking just about entrepreneurship, how you can be a more successful entrepreneur if entrepreneurship is right for you. And then in the last segment, we started to talk about some of these, how you revolutionize yourself, and we started to talk about patterns. So, Natalie, just before we get right back into that, again, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in this subject, if they want to see if what you provide can help them with their business?
I would just say, to keep it short and sweet, come to my website, natalieforrest.com. You'll see all the links. You see most of what I do, or just connect with me on Facebook and send me a note and ask away.
Okay, fantastic. So make sure you do that. You got to be out there as an entrepreneur, expanding your horizons. You've got to be learning. And no, by the way, as an entrepreneur, I've had entrepreneurs ask this, Mike, do you think I should go back to school and get my MBA or my doctorate or something like that? Well, if you have a passion for education, maybe you want to teach in the future, go for it. But if not, don't waste your money, because everything you can learn at MBA school, you can learn by talking to people like Natalie Forrest and other guests on the Biz Rap Radio Show. And so, Natalie, I interrupted. I got sidelined there, but continue, please.
Well, I think what I was talking about was the patterns, right? So when we have patterns, we need to break out of them. And we're talking about being all over the place. A lot of those patterns are, number one, connected to our level of confidence and our level of focus. And that is connected to our purpose. Because if you work with a consultant, if you work with a coach, usually the first thing they ask you is, what is your ideal client? And I love that question. But honestly, I think, Mike, you and I, we probably agree, our ideal clients are like everywhere. So it's kind of hard to put them in a niche. But when you first get started in your business, you do need to niche it. You do need to narrow it down a little bit, because otherwise people will get confused. So all that additional knowledge and expertise that you have, you either need to put it all in one neat package, or you need to wait until people know what you stand for, and then you can bring the rest in. But the other really crucial piece about patterns is that, as you just said, we're not really aware of them. And very often what I have found in all my years of, studying, analyzing, and working with individuals and businesses is really that those patterns are subconscious. They end up being actually challenges to our success. Because what will happen is we're so in a routine, we're not even questioning what we're doing anymore. We're on autopilot. And all of a sudden we're wondering why that income sheet doesn't look better. And then we try to implement some kind of strategy that is in a great book from a great business person that doesn't even apply to us, but that's what we've been taught. So the subconscious patterns are our own behaviors, which are usually based on, and you mentioned that, our upbringing. The things that our parents may have said. They may not have, done anything, or they may not have told us, you will never do ABC, but how we observe them, that influences our mindset, our subconscious mindset. So one example, my mom, I love her so much, she taught me how to survive on very little money, which is great, right? It's a huge skill to have. But man, I would like to do more than that. I don't just want to survive on little money, right? So for me, that was a huge pattern, subconscious, that I had to break through in order for me to not be a teacher and a survivor, but to go out and say, my skills are actually worth a lot of money. So please pay me. And if you can't pay me, then let's figure out a deal.
Right.
But instead of always giving it away because I am able to survive on little. And she never, said that as a bad thing. She was just telling me, you have those survival skills, which are really, really crucial. But they prevented me for years from really making the money that I'm here to make so I can help even more people. Because money to me is just a means. That's just
sure.
so that I can do my purpose.
Well, but that's something we often struggle with. I've struggled with that in my career, certainly. Some of us who are extremely good at what we do are not our own best salespeople, and we often are, and particularly if, as you say, if we're frugal people to begin with, if we're able to live on less because we're not driving $150,000 cars, because we're not living in $5 million houses, because we're not spending $500 out at the bar every second night, if we can live on our means, then we're sometimes less likely to ask for what we're worth. And when we don't ask for what we're worth, then people may, first of all, look at us. They could, first of all, take advantage of us. Or secondly, they might look at us and say, well, he only thinks he's worth $100 an hour, whereas I see there's other guys who are charging $250. Those other guys must know something he doesn't. Otherwise, why wouldn't he be charging $250 an hour when that other guy's only charging $100? So I think that's important to have the chutzpah, if you will, to be able to go out and ask what you're worth and be sure and confident that what you're going to provide to the customer or to your client is well worth the dollars you're charging.
Absolutely. And it's actually interesting because I just had a consultation with a client of mine just about a week and a half ago. And she had done everything I asked her to do. She had written up all of her programs, all of her prices, and all of that. And I looked at that, and I told her, no. I said, this is not enough. You have years of experience. You need to charge more. And it's not just that she needs to charge more because, but she's got the expertise. But exactly what you just said. The problem is she felt that she wanted to help people. She felt a little unsure that people would actually pay her the money that this would take. She was thinking, well, if I charge maybe $100 per hour. And I said, no. And this is very important for your listeners as well. In our own minds, we can think about charging by the hour, but the problem or the challenge is that if you have business with somebody, if I, for example, do a consultation with somebody, I usually have them fill out a questionnaire before that, if it's the second one where we're thinking about possibly signing up. That means I need to read through that. I need to do some research on the websites they gave me. So before I even talk with them for 45 minutes, I've already worked 2, 3, 4, or maybe even 10 hours doing research. So the 1 hour that I'm spending with that client is not just that 1 hour. And people need to understand that. As entrepreneurs, we need to claim that for ourselves, that we actually do prepare. And we also need to let the world know that we prepare. I think for me that was really crucial because I have a career as a college teacher. And part of the pay that you get for a college teaching is preparation time. You don't really get paid that much, for the work that you do after, like grading and so forth, but you do get prep time. So we need to think about that as entrepreneurs. The way, for example, if you're a plumber, okay, you're driving someplace. You need to figure out if you have all of the equipment and all of the tools that you need. So you need to go out and buy new tools. You need to go out and research what is happening right now in your industry. That all is worth time and money.
Yeah, and Natalie, you're absolutely right, and that's something we sometimes forget. But even that plumber, he's got to. It takes time between appointments. He has knowledge. He has to understand plumbing systems. They are changing. They're not the same way as they were 50 years ago. He has to have all the tools, the specialty. So it's more complex than it seems. But look at Natalie. We are almost out of time. I hate to do this because I'm really enjoying this conversation, but it is Natalie Forrest, Dr. Natalie Forrest, Success Revolutions and Revolutionize Your Potential. Go to natalieforrest.com. Natalie, I really do appreciate it. Just any final thought that you can give our listeners before we head to commercial break?
First of all, I want to thank you, Mike, for having me. And the most important thought is trust your gut. Don't let anybody else tell you where to go because you know best.
Okay, there you have it from Dr. Natalie Forrest. It's your host, Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio, and we will be back with the final segment of our show right after these messages. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thanks so much for sticking with us today. That was Natalie Forrest. She is Success Revolution. We're going to finish off this week's show talking to an old friend of mine, David Fraser. David is an investment researcher. He runs an investment research company. It's in investorsmonitor.com. That's investorsmonitor.com. David, welcome to the show.
Hello, Mike. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I should say welcome back to the show. We've had you on before, and it's always refreshing to hear your ideas and thoughts. And I think we live in a situation where a lot of small business people, they're busy running their businesses. They're trying to pay their employees, get some customers through the door, get their, pay their taxes, comply with the thousands of government regulations they have to comply with, but they're not really watching what's going on a more macro sense, what's going on with the economy, both in the United States and of course globally. But we've had a lot of very interesting things happening in the global economy recently. One in particular is the debacle in Europe with Greece. You've got China. The growth rate is dropping. What's going on, David?
Well, what's going on in general, probably a lot of your audience is kind of aware of, actually, even though they might not think about it a lot, and that is that it has to do with all of the massive debt that was created over the past 10 to 20 years, and even longer than that in certain countries, and in Europe and in China, for various reasons why the debt was created. But, at some point, just like I know all of your business owners who are listening are well aware of, you let your debt get out of control, and at some point, you're going to have to pay for it in one way or another. You're going to have to pay it back. or you're going to go out of business. And I think that's really behind a lot of what's going on, to keep it simple.
Well, particularly in Greece, I mean, that country, do you know, does Greece actually manufacture anything? Do they even have any industry over there?
Yeah, and I actually, unfortunately, can't answer that question, but I can assure you of one thing. I've never bought anything that I turn it on and says made in Greece.
Well, maybe some olive oil, I think, one time, and some bad wine. That's about it.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
It's true, and that's a lesson for business. Now, in our personal lives and in our business lives, it is so obvious that it hardly even needs to be talked about. That there is a point in time when you simply have too much debt. Either you have too much personal debt or you have too much business debt. The business or you personally cannot manage that debt, manage the repayment, and unfortunately, some people, not the majority of people, but some people and some businesses, end up going bankrupt. But if you go bankrupt as an individual, you can still go out and get a job. If I take my small business and I go bankrupt and I put 20 employees out of work, well, they can go get a job. But when a country's in that situation, there's no jobs to be got unless the people leave the country and you can come to the United States.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know what to say. It just amazes me that so many people seem to be. They don't realize that. I mean, it's so simple. They think emotionally instead of logically. I mean, it's like, if you're a young person that's maybe 18 to 25 years of age, well, you might go to your parents quite often to borrow money. Well, at some point they're going to tell you, no, you can't have any more. Mm-hmm. And, that's what happens in any given country's government. You can only go to the income producers and the wealthy people up to a certain point in time, and at some point they say, no, you can't have any more. Now, governments can always raise taxes, but what happens? The wealthy people, the high-income earners, actually, they start leaving those countries, and there's statistics to show that that's been happening in the United States more so over the past few years, too. So, yeah, you just can't keep taking on more and more debt, and unfortunately, we got people that are called our political leaders. I don't know why they're called leaders, but a lot of government officials don't seem to be aware of that. So it's a big problem.
It really is. And interesting you mentioned people leaving the country. I read an article that there are more people than ever giving up their United States citizenship. But even people who aren't giving up their citizenship, I know lots of people legally who have moved assets out of the United States and who do not plan on living in the United States, for on a full-time basis. They've got homes in Costa Rica. They've got homes on the islands in the Caribbean. They have places up in Canada. There's a lot of people that are very concerned about, if you will, anchoring themselves into the United States of America.
Well, yeah, and I think I think that's. I understand that completely. I don't have any problems with it. My ancestors came to this country in the 1700s, and for one reason, to escape too much government involvement. And so I don't have any issues with people leaving the country, and when certain so-called leaders in this country seem to want to turn it into Europe. I don't fault those people at all. But we could talk about that for hours, I'm sure. I'm not sure if we come to any conclusions on how to resolve it, but I'm just trying to think, how can we maybe put some helpful thoughts in your listeners, small business owners out there. And so other than the debt issue, we're seeing numerous signs that the economy here is going to continue to grow at a very slow pace. And is actually deteriorating.
David, is that a trend we're going to see, or will we ever get back to the robust, rapid growth we've seen in other economic cycles here in the U.S.?
Well, my answer is it's going to be one or the other. It's very simple, and that is this: if the government officials who spend the majority of their time on catering to people who really don't know what it takes to get an economy going, and are promising handouts and are promising to take to the wealthy to give to others. And most of these people happen to be members of the Democratic Party, who are turning very socialistic in what they propose. If we continue to elect those kind of people, no, we're not going to see any improvements in this economy. And this is not a political speech that I'm trying to give. I don't even like politics. But no, we're not going to see it. We're going to see the economy continue to be very sluggish for years. If we put some people in office who actually try to get rid of government regulation, who lower taxes, then, this economy could really take off like it has in the past. Well, it really has a lot to do with that.
We really got to hope that that happens. Now, we are talking to David Fraser. He runs an investment research firm. His company is InvestorsMonitor.com. I recommend you check it out, InvestorsMonitor.com. You can go there. David, we got like maybe 1 minute left here. Just talk about your services a little bit and and why should somebody come to your website?
Well, what I do primarily is provide investment research services to individual financial market investors, financial market advisors, and money managers. But also something that I started doing about 9 months ago was also providing a very simple, fairly short, 2 to 3 pages at the most, monthly journal/newsletter for small business owners that's written in a very simple way without a lot of jargon, just to kind of let them know what's going on in the macroeconomy so that they can make some wise decisions regarding their business. That's primarily what I did.
Okay, wonderful. So again, check it out, InvestorsMonitor.com. David, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Always good to catch up with you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Okay, unfortunately, we come to that time. It's the end of our show. Here at BizRap Radio, we believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. I'm your host, Mike Manahan. Join me again next week for another edition of BizRap Radio.